We now turn to the last few examples in this short video series, and we're looking at how to factorize binomial expressions. Once again, there's a few common mistakes that students make, and there's a few easy tips that you can follow to help avoid those mistakes. I'm going to show you one of several different types of examples and point out the patterns for each one. In all of these, we're going to factorize them, and we're going to end up with an expression with two brackets, which is where the name binomial comes from. We should note that the only way to get x squared is by multiplying x by x. So the first term in each bracket will be an x. We now ask a standard question. What two factors of the last number, 16, can be added together to equal the number in the middle? In this case, plus 10. Now, how do we actually go about this? First of all, we note that all of the signs are positive, so we only need to look at positive factors of 16. I recommend that you list all the factors of 16 in pairs. This is the easiest way to make sure you don't miss anything. 16 is 1 times 16. Always start with 1 times the number, because sometimes that will be the pair of factors you need. Can also be 2 times 8 or 4 times 4. And those are the only whole number factors of 16. So which pair of numbers can be added to equal plus 10? The answer is 2 plus 8. So the missing numbers are plus 2 and plus 8. And we're done. That's the only combination that will give us plus 10x when we expand the brackets. There's a definite pattern here. If all the numbers in the expression are positive, then the factors will both be positive. Second example has a negative number. So how do we deal with this? The question is, what two factors of 15 can be added together to equal negative 8? We start the same way, and now we look at the factors of 15. Now the only way we can get a plus 15 is if both factors are positive or both factors are negative. But we can't ever get a negative number using positive numbers only. So that means that both factors should be negative. So now we list them out. 15 will be negative 1 times negative 15, and the only other pair is negative 3 times negative 5. So which pair of factors will add together to equal negative 8? And the answer is the negative 3 and the negative 5. So those must be the missing numbers. The pattern here is if you have a negative and a positive in that order in the expression, then both factors must be negative. The third example has two negative numbers in the expression. So the question is, for this example, what two factors of negative 2 can be added together to equal negative 1? So we start the same way. The only way you can get x squared is by multiplying x by x. And we now look at this negative sign. Now if we're going to get a negative number by multiplying two factors, then one factor must be positive and the other must be negative. Don't forget that the negative x is actually negative 1x. So we want to see what two factors of negative 2 will be adding together to equal negative 1. So we list them. Negative 2 is negative 1 times 2, or we can switch the signs and have 1 times negative 2. Those are the only whole number factors. So which pair will add together to equal negative 1? The answer is this pair, and the missing numbers are plus 1 and minus 2. The pattern here is if you have two negative numbers, then the first factor will be positive and the second factor will be negative. Okay, this one looks almost identical, but the sign of the x is different. It's positive. Alright, so the question is, what two factors of negative 2 can be added together to equal positive 1? Once again, the only way we can get a negative sign is if one of the factors is negative. And now we want them to sum together to equal plus 1. So that will mean the first pair this time, negative 1 plus 2 is 1. We're trying to get plus 1x. So the only way we can do that is if the numbers are -1 and +2. What's the pattern? If you have a positive and a negative in the expression in that order, then the factors will be negative and positive. Another slight variation. Everything is positive here, so we can jump right in. The question would be, what factors of 16 will add together to equal 8? And it can only be a +4 and a +4. But notice that this second bracket is repeated. So we should express this as x plus 4 in brackets squared. The last type we're going to look at has no x term. In other words, it's x squared plus 0x minus 16. We still ask the same question: what two factors of -16 can be added together to equal, in this case, 0? The only way we can get a negative number on the end is if one factor is positive and the other factor is negative. So we list out the factors of -16, -1 times 16, or 1 times -16. Those cannot be added to equal 0. Nor can -2 and 8, or 2 and -8. It has to be 4 and -4. They sum together to equal 0, but there's an obvious shortcut. I hope you can see it. All you have to do is take the square root of 16, and that will tell you what the factors must be. Make one positive and the other negative, and you're done. This example is called a difference of squares, and they're actually probably the easiest once you know what you're doing.